of the 1980s. That's according to former Finance Minister Professor Kwesi Botre, who says government should get real with the citizens in seeking assistance to revive the economy. But have we reached those incredible lows of the 1980s? And how do we dig ourselves out? We'll be seeking answers to these questions for you in a moment. Also in the bulletin, another person has been struck to death by lightning in the Volta region, and this is about 2 weeks after a similar incident happened, with residents fearing to touch the body due to superstition. We'll give you details regarding that. Meanwhile, the Ghana Meteorological Agency is warning of more rains this evening and the early hours of tomorrow. So move to safe grounds if you are in a flood-prone area. We'll seek some guidance as to how to go about it in a jiffy. Stay with us. We have details of all these and more. We are live on DSTV channel 279. If you're watching us, you may also be streaming on Facebook. Let's go for the highlights of today's big stories.
NewsA10 Headlines is brought to you by Deluxe Superfix Tile Cement.
The Speaker of Parliament has directed the leadership of the House to meet with the Water Resources Works and Housing Minister in finding a lasting solution to the incessant flooding in Accra. Alban Bagun says the legislature must take keener interest in the devastation caused by the floods,
so that we see what kind of interventions as a House we could put in place to support.
The Privileges Committee says it will have to verify the supporting documents presented by Asin Central MP Kennedy Japan in defense of his absence from Parliament. Ranking member on the committee, Kwekuri Kithagen, tells TV3 the MP for Ayosu Central and Greater Accra Regional Minister Henry Korte was unable to appear before the committee due to ill health. He further explained the modus operandi the committee is adopting in reaching the embattled Dominic Kwabinya MP Sarah Adjosafo.
We have obviously communicated to her, but we haven't got a response back from her in terms of that she was going to appear or not.
Ghana's economy is moving perilously close to the edge akin to the early 80s due to heavy debt and inability to meet social obligations. That's according to former Finance Minister Professor Kwesi Botre. The former Finance Minister was speaking at a book launch in Accra.
And are moving now so perilously close to the edge of the precipice where we were in the early 80s.
All right, so let's delve into the details of the stories we have for you tonight. And we are starting with issues regarding the Ghanaian economy because it concerns all of us. Sadly, we are moving so perilously close to the edge when we were in the early 80s with an economy saddled with debt which we can't even pay and meet our social obligations to the poor. These were the words of former Finance Minister Kwesi Botre at a book launch in Accra. Let's go and listen to him. That will subject what he has said to some analysis.
The legacy of dismantling this old and unworkable economy and creating a new market-determined economy that we have today needs to be appreciated. Although, sadly, we don't appear to have learned our lessons and are moving now so perilously close to the edge of the precipice where we were in the early 80s, with an economy saddled with debt in which we can't even pay and meet our social obligations to the poor. This, again, was a certain quality, especially in the early days, which is why President Kufuor, for instance, was a minister looking over and crossing the political transitions. I mean, in those days, whenever the PNDC had to make a decision in appointing anybody to any office, the principal consideration was, and Jerry would ask, well, who is the best person in the country, rather than what are his political colors at the time.
So those were the words of former Finance Minister Professor Kwesi Botwe. We are trying to get some analysis on this. We are definitely going to be picking the thoughts of an economist and the Director of Operations for DLX Finance when he does join us, to find out how we have gone from where we were to this current economic situations. And from all indications, it is not just domestic. Clearly, there are external factors that may also be influencing our current economic hardship. We go straight to Zoom now. We're fortunate to be joined by Joe Jackson. He is Director of Operations for DLX Finance. He's joined us via Zoom. Good evening, sir, and thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, and it's good evening to all your listeners and viewers. Good to be on your platform this evening.
Right. To start with, is our current economic situation that bad to even equate it to what happened in the 1980s?
Well, it's interesting because in the late 1980s, I worked in the Ministry of Finance. And in the last few weeks, I've started to wonder whether we are not so close to what the situation was there. We were burdened with a lot more debt than we needed to have. The economy was in dire straits as we are now. And maybe, just maybe, we should go back to the basics, because one of the things we've always said was that the structure of this economy hasn't changed. So maybe some of the things we used in the during those years in the 80s and in the late 80s can be applied. And I remember there was a serious focus on getting our commodity exports out and improving our commodity exports, from gold to the agric exports, everything. There was also a boom in non-traditional exports. In fact, we had the golden age of non-traditional exports, where there was a lot done in terms of taking non-traditional exports by a factor of 10 in a few years. So just maybe there was the financial sector restructuring. There was a lot done in those years. And maybe it's time to go back. Maybe it's time to pull out the blueprint for the structural adjustment programs, right, and see what we can learn from there and maybe go back to basics. Even more important, maybe it's time to seek external help. And I've always been an advocate for us returning to the IMF. And I was glad when the Deputy Minister of Finance hinted that just maybe they had started exploring that option. Listen, our situation is bad, and there's no option we should leave off the table. Every single option must be explored to get us out of the pain that we are in. Right,
Mr. Jackson, we'll look at that specific of whether or not the IMF and the World Bank would be our next most, available option. But looking at the current situation, it cannot entirely be blamed on local or current Ghanaian challenges, not just the mismanagement of the economy by this current administration that is solely to be blamed for it. There are clearly some external challenges as well. How do we factor that into seeking a solution?
In fact, that's exactly why external help is good. Because a lot of the problems may not be our own making. We have to admit that COVID left us with trying times. We have to admit that the Ukraine-Russia war has taken up the prices of fuel worldwide, and everybody is suffering from inflation. And the external bodies, the IMF in particular, has programs that are providing support to emerging countries like us. We should take advantage of these programs because they are so common to everybody in the world.
And so on the back of that, you were earlier making the point that in the immediate term, Ghana should go back to the IMF. The finance minister was quite categorical and said that we're not going to even consider that option. Beyond that, what else can we do?
Well, the most important thing is you've got to restore confidence in the economy. That's critical. We've got to restore confidence in the economy, and the confidence in the economy will help bring down interest rates, will help reduce the runaway CD. And so, and it's the big if we can restore confidence without having to bring in an external party, all well and good. But I'm not so sure we can do that. And I'm not sure we should forgo the support that the IMF could bring to the table. I'm not sure we should forgo the reassurance to our debtors that the IMF could bring to the table. And so I'm extremely reluctant to leave the IMF out of the equation. If the finance minister says no, we will bow to his superior wisdom. But it leaves me with a sinking feeling in my stomach.
And finally, what is it exactly we are going to the IMF for? To get money to come and repay our debts, or just seek advice on how to manage our current situation? What is it we are going to be looking for from the IMF when we do go there, as you're suggesting?
First of all, some money would be good because we are in dire straits. But most important of all, to signal to our debtors that we are serious about the facing our economic challenges, such that with the backing and maybe even the guarantees that the IMF will give, we can then seek restructuring of our debt. So it's both to get some money, long-term money that can help get us out of the challenges we are, and to seek a rescheduling of our debt, giving the backing and the support of the IMF.
Okay. Mr. Joe Jackson, thank you so much for your time this evening and your expert thoughts as well. Joe Jackson is the Director of Operations for Dalex Finance. It's a conversation many of you have already started having. Do be a part of the program on our various social media handles. I'll be happy to hear from you. This is still News at 10 on TV3. Stay with us. When we return, we'll be talking about more rains expected in the next few days. Plus, another person has died from lightning strike in the Volta region. Details shortly. Welcome back to News at 10 on TV3. It's not only in Accra that rains have caused havoc. In the West Municipality, feeder roads keeps deteriorating due to the constant downpour. Here is a report by Stanley Nibleu.
The West Municipality has more than 450 kilometers of feeder roads. Large portions of them have become unmotorable. The road linking Maira and Manchi is one of the bad roads, taking a toll on business activities in the area. Constant rains have resulted in deep gullies on the stretch. It was a difficult task for commercial vehicles to ply this slippery and muddy road. Residents say this is what they have to endure anytime the rains come. For some commercial drivers, they have stopped commuting because roads in the area are simply not vehicle worthy. Assembly member for the Samsam electoral area is requesting urgent intervention.
No cars go, no car come. So the way it is, we are appealing on the authorities to take it as an urgent to attend to us and make sure they put it on the motorway safe.
Rains are also fast depleting inner roads at Katapop, also in the district. Other roads linking Amasama into adjoining communities are also affected.
It's very bad roads. I mean, that is the right word that I have to use. And because the area is a new development area, that's what we are going to see. You know, with normal Ghana, we don't develop the areas before the people get there. The people goes there before we do the development. So it's part of our plan, and we are going to do it.
Residents at Kojo Ashong want government to urgently repair a deteriorating metal bridge linking the community to Amasaman.
All right, so those are some Ghanaians expressing their frustration as a result of the roads and the erosion caused by the rains. But we are told that more rains are expected in the coming days. Felicity Ahafianyo is with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. She's joined us via phone to help us understand how much more rain should we expect in the coming days. Madam, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good evening and thanks for having me.
Yeah, first of all, what forecasts do you have? We are told that we should expect more rains this evening and going into tomorrow and even Friday. Help us understand how much more rain is expected.
Okay, thank you very much. On our Monday chat, we spotted that today and tomorrow we'll have more rain in Ghana. And today too, at our midweek chat review, the confirmation is still there for today and tomorrow. So for this evening, we are still expecting rains from our source region, which is to our eastern borders countries, Nigeria. We are having an active storm which is tracking down. The latest time that we were given it was around midnight, between midnight and 5 a.m. that we are anticipating it to engulf the eastern flank of the country. So yes, still rain is in the forecast between now and Friday.
We have an image on our screen which you shared with us. We can see, if you look at the bottom part where there is the Ghana map, it looks as though we have, we'll put that back on the screen shortly. We have more rains coming within the southern belt or the lower part of the Ghana map. Talk to us, how intense is this rain? And compared to what we had today, is it the same or probably more?
What the satellite imagery that we displayed now, what we've seen is the one that affected us today, the one over the country, Ghana, is the one that we affected us, is moving away into Cote d'Ivoire and parts of the sea. But the one we are currently monitoring is the one behind it, the one in the Nigeria, stretching from the north down to the coast. We have a portion also over Niger. So this is the system that we are monitoring now, that we are anticipating it to hit us between midnight and 5 a.m. For this very one is also likely the areas that we are anticipating it to hit most is the middle sector, the transition and part of the northern sector. The coastal strip, it will come and induce more cloudiness with light to moderate rain over places.
All right. And maybe my final question would be that how long would this last? Is this for 3 days, 4 days, just a day? And the intensity, would it flood?
In terms of flooding, yeah, the ground is saturated. So most definitely any extra rain that will come will definitely result into flash floods or runoff. The runoff waters will definitely result into flash floods over places. And I believe that today most areas in Accra have seen some flash floods over most places. So if this one will come in again, then we can just imagine what tomorrow is going to look like. And personally, I wish we will not have the rain for the coastal belt tomorrow. Rather, let it shift over the middle sector into the north. And then they are also likely to have moderate winds in there, which is likely to bring distractions here and there. So they also need to take precautions so that we save lives and property.
We are grateful for your time this evening, Madam Felicity Ahafianyo. She is the head of Central Analysis and Forecasting Office of the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Thank you for your time. In a related development, the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, says reports it's received from the Ghana Meteos shows that there will be heavy rains across the country this evening. That's today, Wednesday, and in the early hours of tomorrow, getting into Friday. NADMO, in a statement, has asked citizens living in flood-prone areas to take precautionary measures ahead of the rains. Residents living in Accra, Cape Coast, Takrade and Kaswa have been advised to move to higher grounds and identify safe havens in their communities to avoid danger. So that's the advice coming your way. If you're living anywhere in a flood-prone area, move to higher grounds. Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to the Public Relations Manager of the National Disaster Management Organization, George AEC. Mr. AEC, good evening. Thank you for your time. From the information you have given, more rains are expected. You're asking residents to move to higher grounds or safe havens. Help us with some of the safe havens, for instance, in Accra.
I should help you with some of the things. I don't have the data before me, but what I do know is that in the Osu enclave, Koleklote enclave, the stadium and then the Independence Square are part of the identified safe havens in that constituency. And the Adabraka enclave, I think the Catholic Church there is one that NADMO is negotiated with the authorities and is also being accepted. And it's rippling across the capital city. My Director General had instructed all the district directors to identify places and be used as safe havens, and those things were done. It's unfortunate I don't have that data before me as we speak.
We hope that you can share it with us, so we use our social media platforms to alert people. But talk to us also about preparations from the side of NADMO. You have warned people. How prepared are you in helping in case reports of floods start coming in?
Yeah, thank you. Since morning, our men have been assisting people when we get distress calls. We have our men, search and rescue and operation teams on standby and patrolling the city. Once we get distress call, we dispatch the teams to assist people. That's what we're going to be doing. Our men are on standby under the leadership of the Deputy Director General Operations, Abu Ramadan. And as we speak, he's still in the office. So let's see how things go. We are prepared to assist people who may be inundated by floods or any other unfortunate incident when the rains set in, as predicted by the Ghana Meteorological Services Agency.
All right. Thank you so much. For lack of time, we'll have to leave it here. But certainly it's a conversation that will be ongoing in the next few days. We'll be coming back to NADMO for answers. George AEC is PR for NADMO. To that other headline we have for you, a 20-year-old lady has allegedly been struck dead by thunder and lightning at Achiagoma, a suburb of Penyi in the Volta region. The tragic incident reportedly occurred around 1:30 this afternoon during a light rain on Wednesday, June 15. The deceased, Etonam Agbekli, is said to be 4 months pregnant and was on her way to her grandmother in the market. The body was, however, left at the scene of the incident until around 5 p.m. before the police came in to pick it up. Those around were unwilling to touch it due to issues of superstition and fear. You would recall that about 2 weeks ago, there were similar reports of a coconut seller who had been struck by lightning, and his body was left there for almost 24 hours. Before the police came in. Some rituals were performed before that man's body was picked, but we are unable to state whether or not for this lady who is suspected to have died from a lightning strike, also had some rituals performed on her before the body was picked. This is still News at 10 on TV3. We are shifting our attention to some other stories before we take leave of you and find out what's happening on the international fronts. The United States is providing another $1 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. That's according to President Joe Biden. This will include additional artillery and coastal defense weapons, as well as ammunition for artillery and advanced rocket systems for Ukraine's defense operations in the Donbas region, the White House has confirmed. The Nigerian army says it has found a woman believed to be one of the girls abducted from a school in the town of Chibok in 2014. A short statement on its social media page said a patrol had intercepted her and her son on Tuesday around Ngoshi village in the northeastern state of Borno. She was identified as Mrs. Mary Ngoshi. No further details were given about what had happened to her. Look, we have many more stories for you on our website, that is 3news.com. Do visit and get updated of what's happening in Ghana and around the world. My name is Martin Asiedudati. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening, and as always, stay positive. Bye for now.